How's it going, guys? It's Rickster back with Cure. Today I'm going to be showing you kind of how to go about making those classic Brostep basses in Massive, mainly like the kind of scream filtery womp ones. If you want a more like Reese or Sustain or Screech tutorial, let us know. But this is the real basic game to how everyone from like Kill the Noise to Skrillex, Savant, kind of everyone in that sphere at the time was making these like very talking, whomping bass sounds. When I do it, at least, I'll like typically start straight up with just an OTT on it, just because there's so much that kind of lacks from the sound when you're using Scream Filter that you kind of miss out on hearing until you put an OTT on these sounds. But yeah, I'm about to get into it. Some of this stuff would take much too long for me to fully go over like all the Wavetable game, but just know modern talking was like a meme for a reason in the dubstep community back in the day, because everyone used it, because it sounds like it sounds really, really good when you know how to use it. It can sound really stupid when you just use it by itself. Toulouse, that's a banger, but you know, it definitely didn't help the meme status of this fucking Wavetable, you know. But other great Wavetables, Sonic is cool. These Flenders, Squelchy, the Digigrain, the Mellophantic, AI, Carbon, Arctic, Bronze, Magger, Chrome, like all these can sound really kind of crazy when you know how to like use them. That's again something that I wouldn't be able to go into in a video. It would take so long, but I'm just gonna get into this right away. So if I play a C0 with Massive, this is a quick tip. You can hear this is a C0 when I use a normal square saw wavetable, but on modern talking, it's for some reason an octave lower. I honestly could not tell you why, but I'm just gonna Control Alt click and drag. It lets you jump, do these octaves and the pitch and jumps of octaves, which is really nice. And then the init patch of Massive always loads up with the volume envelope for some reason. Sustain at 50%, so I'm gonna turn that all the way up. And you know, we're already getting places. So first thing you're going to want to do is when you're messing around with wavetables is I like to put it to bend plus, bend minus. And you can already start getting into a really cool kind of like talky, squishy bass. When you're doing this kind of step in the process, figuring out like your wavetables, I'd recommend to always kind of approach this. Don't do too much here. You don't need to do a lot in the actual wavetables themselves. Because if you're like, you know, if you put an LFO on this and you're like, it's moving a lot. And we're about to put a scream filter on it. And that's going to like really kind of exacerbate a lot what's going on. So I try to keep it pretty tame in the beginning. In the LFO settings, typically I'll pick like a sine or like one of the bending modes or a triangle or something, and then put 100% on the bottom. And then I'll crossfade them. I find it a little easier to control the LFOs when you approach them like this, like using the amp and the crossfades and stuff to get shapes, instead of like trying to like hold shift and like really surgically get your ranges down. But yeah, of course you could always add like ring mod. It's great to make the sound a little sharper. Phase mod can sound really cool sometimes. It can make the sound real like squishy. Position can make it sound a little squishy too, but in a more soft way than phase mod. And then the filter FM, unfortunately, we can't put on a scream filter. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this first slider up to serial mode. So where filter 1 will go into filter 2. And then I'll put the mix all the way down at the bottom, so I'm only hearing filter 2, just because I plan on putting another filter there. And I'll set the scream knob to the middle, and I'll set the resonance knob to the middle just by double-clicking them. And already we're getting there. You're getting like... And now the kind of game you can play is playing around with the scream knob. Like you can get a much kind of yelpier sound by turning the scream knob up, or really distorted like by turning the scream knob down. It's this is like really like where the fun kind of comes into it. Turning the resonance up can take it from a lower resonance amount, can get you more of like a growly kind of tone, and turning the resonance up can get you a much more like womp kind of sound. So don't be afraid to really mess around with this. Like really play around with settings till you kind of know what you're going for when you're making sounds in here. So I think I like that. So now what I like doing is I like picking a distortion mode down here in the insert one. Just add some extra crispiness. Sometimes the sine shaper can be really cool. And sometimes you can add some like cool harmonics, like by turning up the dry wet all the way and finding a good sweet spot for the distortion and then backing off. So it's just adding like a cool little extra texture to it. And then now the fun part kind of begins. Now you can pick like a low pass here. I can find works quite well to now tame back on the distorted frequencies that are coming from the scream and the distortion, or like a high pass, or a band pass, or a band reject, or an all pass, or, you know, you can really do whatever you want. I'm gonna pick a band pass because that's probably one of my favorites. I'll set the resonance up kind of around halfway. And then you can use like, you can pull the bandwidth back so you kind of get more of like a wow, versus if you turn the bandwidth up as the cutoff goes up, you can get a different interesting tone. This is really kind of what the whole game's about. It's like I could go through and specifically explain on a DSP level like what's happening, but like who's thinking about DSP when you're making these kind of bass sounds? I don't think people really are. It's all like by ear. And then typically what I'll end this patch with is either one of the distortion modes, chorus, or dimension expander, or some combination of them. Sometimes like a phaser or a flanger can be really cool as well. A delay, like get like a slap delay kind of thing. And don't be afraid to like modulate the drive, modulate the dry wet, or go into the EQ and modulating some of these settings, like something like this could be really cool, it's. And then you also have the feedback, which can really like make or break a sound. Not for this one, you're not hearing much of a difference, but you can still get some very fun tones out of it with the feedback, in my opinion. So yeah, go out, have fun with Massive. It's probably one of my favorite synths of all time. A lot of these bass sounds are much simpler than they sounded back in the day. I remember they were blowing my mind at the time. I had to figure it out, and it took me too long, but it was really just people had OTT and they did not tell everyone else about it.